Okay, so now let's discuss about CSOM, okay, client-side object model, but this is the .NET managed object model. So that means here we are using you are going to write some code in C#.NET. So first of all, there are two DLLs which are available on for this to work with client-side object model. So these two DLLs are known as this Microsoft.SharePoint.client.dll and Microsoft.SharePoint.client.runtime.dll. So these two DLLs are required, and if you have SharePoint installed on that on your machine, for example, this is a laptop where I have SharePoint installed on this. SharePoint 2016 is installed on this, and in those cases, you will be able to find the DLLs from this location. So this is your installation directory. Maybe it is C drive, E drive, wherever it is, and then underscore sorry in inside each API folder the DLLs are available. So if you are trying to run from a machine where SharePoint is installed, then you can go to this path and then you will be able to add those DLLs from there. Now, one more thing is that so when you work with your SharePoint object model or any kind of object model, if you'll see here the classes, so these are the classes which are for server side object model: SP context, SP site, SP web. So SP is you can see here it is starting with SP. So and SP list item, SP field like this. For the managed client object model, there is no SPs there. So that will be client context, site, web, list item fields like this. For all other client object models are starting without SP, without starting with SP. So now, as I said, there should be a context where you can what is the which will be your starting point for doing or working with any kind of SharePoint objects. So that the client context class in managed and the Silverlight object model is inherited from client context runtime class. Okay, from there it is started. Now, uh, so now when you will start with your SharePoint client-side object model, first thing that you have to do is you have to add the namespace on that Microsoft.SharePoint.client into your programming. Now, two things are I will highlight here. One thing is how you will start with this. First of all, let's say imagine you are developing a ASP.NET website where you might require to get access from some data from your SharePoint site. That means the data is in the SharePoint site, but the application that you are developing, it is a .NET website or a ASP.NET MVC website, or let's say imagine it is a Windows application. So those classes, the your application will run maybe in the local system, maybe in an IS server, but you need data from a SharePoint server. So those scenarios you cannot use your server side code because that time your code should run on the server, but you don't have SharePoint installed on that. There is just ASP.NET website. So in those cases you can add these two DLLs and then you will be able to work with that. Now as I said, these DLLs are available over here. You will not have that folder also in your local system when you will try to do that because you don't have SharePoint installed on that. So in those cases, you can get the DLLs from the NuGet packages in Visual Studio. Now you have couple of options on how you will start with. For example, you have option that you can start with a ASP.NET website, a Windows application, a console application if you are familiar with this Visual Studio kind of things. But let me just tell you that how it will be, how you will develop this kind of application so that it will be easier for you to start with all this kind of programming stuff. Now let me open my Visual Studio. So I have Visual Studio 2017 is here. You can use your 2015 version, 2019 version, any version which is familiar with you can start with. Now, when I'm starting this, so if you'll see, there will be file. This is the Visual Studio editor. If you are not aware of these things, this is a Visual Studio editor, and then you will be able to develop any kind of application on that. Even we will see how you can develop SharePoint apps, those applications. So various applications you can develop using this Visual Studio. So for this, I will go to File, New, and then Project. So when you will open this project, you can see here various templates are there in the left side. So if you click on the just in Visual CSOM, you will be able to see a lot of application on that. Not only your WPF, Windows Form, console application, .NET framework. So this kind of application, ASP.NET Core Web Application, ASP.NET normally Web Application, .NET framework. So various application or various templates are there which you can develop by using this Visual Studio. Apart from that, if you'll see, there will be other languages. If you'll see Visual C Sharp, Visual Basic. So Visual Basic also will be having those kind of applications. But the difference is that if you need to know VB programming on this, so we usually do not use that. So always we use csap.net. So start with your csap.net. Now if you'll see, these are the SharePoint or add-in applications. So it is in SharePoint as well as other add-ins like Excel, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint. So these add-ins also you will be able to develop. Now let me choose this Windows desktop. So if you'll see here, there's a desktop application here. Now, in this, if you'll see, there is a Windows app.NET framework, Windows Forms app.NET framework. So in this case, now let us say this is just a demo application I'm doing. So choose this Windows Form app.NET framework, and then you can give a name for this, and then click on OK. So let's say I will say demo Windows Form apps. So something like that I'll click on OK. Now when you will add this will actually create a Windows Form application. Windows Form application are those applications which will run on your desktop. Okay, you do not that will not run in the browser. This will be on desktop. Now suppose you want this application to run in another machine, then what will happen is you have to give a setup file for them, so which they will install, and then after that they will be able to use that. So that is normally like your office, how you are using it locally. You have to install that and then you can use that. So same way here you can have your develop you can develop a Windows application. Now this is also a requirement even if you are using SharePoint. Let's say your company is saying that we need something, a set of file where we will just choose an Excel and then it should populate the values, or it should insert item to the list. Or maybe sometimes what happened is your business will require like they want to do some bulk update or bulk insert items from an Excel. So those cases, what will happen is you can give a setup for them. So they will get an interface, and then they will use that interface to work with your SharePoint objects. So and not only your SharePoint on-premises site, you can also, we will discuss fully on SharePoint online site how we can connect to our SharePoint online sites here. Now in this Windows application, as I say, first thing is uh, we need those two DLLs. Okay, so first and foremost thing, if you'll see here we don't have SharePoint DLLs over there. Now if I'll go to the view code, right click and then just view code. So here you will not be able to use any kind of classes that we discussed here. For example, the site or web, those classes you will not get it. For example, if I'll try to write here site, you will see that it will okay, this is a class from a different, not our SharePoint classes. So let me just add web. So you will see here web is not there. So because this is a SharePoint class and we need to use those DLLs. So where we'll get these two DLLs? So if you'll see, this is the reference folder, and this folder will contain all your DLLs inside that. So right click on this, and then you will see here add references there. So if you'll see add reference, now what will happen is it will show the DLLs which which are available in your system. Okay. So if you have SharePoint installed, maybe you will see some kind of SharePoint DLLs on that, or you know the path, so you can just click here browse, and then you will be able to go to the path, so where we can have all these DLLs. So maybe if you'll go to see program files, then common files, then Microsoft Share, then web server extension. This is actually the path. Then if you go to 16 and then easy API. So this is the place actually where all your DLLs are available. So if you'll see, there will be client DLLs will be there. You can see here, this is Microsoft.SharePoint.client.dll. So and then there will be also same client.runtime.dll will be there. So this will be the runtime DLL. So these two DLLs basically required, but I can have this path because I have SharePoint installed on my machine. You might not have that thing. So in those cases, what you can do is you can, I'm just not adding from here. Now I'll go here, add reference, and then you can see here manage NuGet packages is there. So click on that manage NuGet package, and then if you'll see here, this is actually some repository where you will see all the DLLs. Okay, not only or your SharePoint DLL or .NET DLL, lot of other files you will be able to get it. First, there are three tabs you can see here. One thing is your installed. That means whatever the DLLs are installed on this from your NuGet package, it will show you. And if you have any update also required, it will show you from where you can update to the latest version. Next tab is the update. So here if you'll see any kind of updates will be there, it will show you. So either your choice is there. If you want to update, you can just update the DLLs from there. But the important tab here is the browse. So if you click on this browse, you will be able to see DLL files, JS files, any kind of things are there. If you'll see here, entity framework, bootstrap DLLs, bootstrap JS files, then NuGet core and the corresponding version. Okay, and then you can see here there is jQuery files. You can see this is the jQuery files, and you can see here 63.3 million downloads are there. So that means this is the repository that around the world people are using that. You can see here nlog is there, log format is there, and this is actually not that all everything are from Microsoft. You can see here this is Microsoft.ASP.NET.Web API. This is by Microsoft, but this one is not from Microsoft. So but these are all shape DLLs as long as it is available from here. But if you have, let's say it is conflicting with some other DLLs which you have already added, then in that case you can use the DLLs which are basically supported for that particular version. So so here what we'll do is we will try to add our SharePoint.client.dll. So if you'll see here, I will just search for SharePoint client, and now if you'll see here, there are DLLs are available, Microsoft.client.runtime.CSOM, and this is not from Microsoft. Let's take the DLLs from Microsoft. So if you'll see here, this is the client, the runtime DLL by Microsoft, and this is the SharePoint.client DLL, right? So first one, and then we will click here install. You can see here latest stable version it is showing, and if you click on this, you will be able to see other versions also. Now click on install. So once you will install, it will install that DLL in your application. So if you see here, now you should be able to see this Microsoft.SharePoint.client. You can see here this one. Now we need to add the runtime DLL. So I'll go here, I'll choose this SharePoint.client.runtime, and then I'll install the same version from there. You can see here. Now we both the DLLs added over there. Okay, so if you'll see here, now both the DLLs added. You can see here client and then client.runtime. So now we should be able to use our DLLs or our classes over there. So now if I'll first thing I will do is let's go back here, and then we will see how we can add controls over there. For example, um, this is actually the place you can see. I'll go to the toolbox. So toolbox is the place where you can have controls over there. For example, let's say you want to have a text box, so you can go here, text box. So I'll go and add a text box. Let me just add a text box. So you can see here text box is there. So you can add a text box here. So this is the text box. You can just drag and drop to change the position. You can see this way you can increase or decrease this width. So and then various controls are actually available. So if you'll see here, there are Windows form controls, drop down button, checkbox list. So these are the controls that we are using: link, hyperlink, label. These are the controls that are that you can use. For example, let's say I want to have a create list form. So in this case, I will have a label control. So I will add this label here. You can see here, and I may just select this, and you can go to the properties, or you can just press F4, and you can change the label things here. For example, here I will say list name. Okay, now you can see here, this is how your list name is. This is your control. So control also having properties. So you should this is the text box property. If I'll write something, it will show inside the text box. We don't want that. We need to just change the ID. So if you'll see here, the ID is text box 1. Don't go by that. You should follow the standard. So txt, suppose I will say list name. Okay, so now you can see here, this is the control. So uh, now this is how you can design your forms. Okay, and you will use various controls in that. Now if I'll go back to the code file, so if you'll see here, now this is where you need to write first. So we need to have your namespace there. So using Microsoft dot SharePoint dot client. Okay, so this is our namespace, and now if I'll try to access our classes, I'll be able to do that. For example, there is a conflict in two classes. One thing is Microsoft. You can see here Microsoft SharePoint.form and system.windows.forms.form, and this class is not from our SharePoint stuff. This is from our Windows thing. So I will say system.windows.forms. So basically that will resolve the issue, because it is just confusing which form I should use. So you can mention here that I need this form. Now here, and then if I'll say wave, you should be able to see now a web class you are using. If you'll say site, you can see your site over here. You can see here site, and so similarly, if you will say client context, you should be able to see that we have our client context class. So this is how you will be able to use the classes, and this is how you can develop a Windows form application, and then how you can run this. So for example, you can see here, you can just click on the start, and then you will see the Windows form will open. Okay, you can see this is the form. Okay, now let's just add a button, and then probably I'll show you how you can use a button, and then how you can show the results. Now let us say I will use a button. So I'll just drag a button here, and to show the results I will take a label from here. So you can see this is the label. So now in the button, I will go to the properties. I will change the text. So I will say click here, and then I'll change the button ID. So if you'll see here, I will change the button ID to BTN click here. And now to this is our label 2. So you can have you can also change this. This button, how it will appear is you can just double click on this. It will generate the events. If you'll see here, button ID then underscore click event. So here we want to, let's say, show what is whatever user enter in the text box. So you will say label 2, because we can show the message in label 2 dot text equal to we will say welcome to the training. So now we can take the text box value. So I'll just give a space on that, plus let's say txt dot text. So now if you'll see here, it will show the message. Now let's run it. You can see here, if I'll say Bijay, click here, you can see here it is saying welcome to training Bijay. So this is how actually you can run this, and the code we will see in the web app ASP.NET website. Um, but now this is how you can use a Windows Form application. Now let me so if you have requirement, you can go for that. You don't necessarily, you should not you don't need to develop a web application also. You can have the code in the Windows application. A lot of time you are migration you are doing, you need to develop a console application or a Windows application. I think the best I will prefer is I'll go for Windows application. The reason behind that is it will be you will be getting an interface where you can add your controls if required. You can have design a very beautiful form. Recently we are working with a client where we created a they don't want to take Azure license for that, and so they don't want to maintain a different thing. So we suggest them that instead of going for a provider hosted app, then we can give you a console application, so sorry, a Windows application, and we give them a Windows application, and there we have a very good form. So on the button clicks, our logic is going on that. Now let's go back, and we will see how we can develop a console application. Let's close this, and what I will do is I will go here. I will develop a console application now. So I will open Visual Studio, and on this Visual Studio, now we will go for a console application. So I'll say File, New Project, and you can see here console application.NET Framework, and click on OK. So if you'll see this now, in console application, we will not have any kind of a page or a form where you can drag and drop controls on that. So you will not have that thing. What you have, you can just take a CS file. So this main method will be getting called when you run the application, and then you can print your values here. So this is basically, it will print in the console. So you can write your console everything here, and you can add the same DLLs from the NuGet. So if you go here, you can say add reference, right click, add reference. Sorry, you can go for right click and then manage NuGet package, and you will be able to add the DLLs, and then you can use your using statement and you will be able to write it. So here the problem is that when I run this, you will get a command from over there. This is having a different purpose altogether. Again, let's say I want to just see how many items are there, how many items, or what is, let's say you have two lists, we are comparing the item count, or let's say you are comparing whether the titles are same or not. So this kind of things, if you'll see, you can just use a console application for that. But for our purpose, let's say we will develop a web application here. Why I'm going for that web application? Because when you will use your .NET framework thing in the or when you will use this .NET Manage Object Model in provided hosted app, that is nothing but a Windows Form application. So you will be little familiar with that. Now let me go here. I will open this Visual Studio again, and this time you saw how we can develop a Windows form and a console application. Now we will go for a web application. So I'll go here, File, New, a Project, and in this, if you'll see here, there is Windows Desktop. Not, don't go for that, and go for web application. Now remember, here you should choose Visual CSOM. So web application, and then the second one, if you'll see here, ASP.NET web application. So this is where you are doing. So let's say I will say client side object model demo, and then I will click on OK. So once you click on OK, now what will happen is, so it is asking for what kind of application you want to develop. Here we need a Windows Form application. Click on OK. Now when you will develop a Windows Form application, here you will get an same kind of interface or a page where you can add your controls. So we saw in the Windows Form application, sorry, Windows desktop application, there was a form, and there you will be able to add controls on that. Same way here also, we can see how we will add controls into that. So you can design your forms based on that, and when you run, this time it will run in the browser. So it will not open as a Windows form, it will open in a browser. So from that browser, you will be able to see your outputs. So it is taking some time because a lot of DLLs, a lot of JS files, a lot of required files it will add, and then it will give you an interface where there will be a default.spx page will be there. Let me just tell you. So the first one, if you'll see here, this is the solution explorer. So when you will click on that, you will be able to see the solution and the projects inside that. For example, this is my solution, and inside that there it is also created a project with the same name. And if you'll see, there are certain files are there. There are ASPX pages are there. There is a script folder where all your required script files are there. And then there is font. Then there is AppStat, so where some of the CS files are there. And this is again the references. You can see this many DLLs are already added over there. So these DLLs, these are the where we will add all these DLLs, and we already have this many DLLs you can see here. And similarly, there is a default.spx page. You can see here, this is my default.spx page. So if I'll click on that, you can see here a lot of the static contents are there. Now let's run this application and then see how it is appearing, and then we will add our DLL. So I'll just click on this IIS Express Google Chrome. So we want to open this in Google Chrome. So it will once it will open, then we'll see how the page is appearing. You can see here. So this is the default.spx is opening in my local IIS browser. So once it will open, you will see some of the contents over there in uh, in your browser. So let it open. So you can see now how the page is appearing. So you can see this is just some of the test content by default, whatever is added in this page. So let's stop this application, and we will remove this content from here. So I'll go to the default.spx page, and let's say I just want to keep this row, one column will keep, the other things will delete. So let me delete all other things. I'll delete these things, and this is where we are going to add our content. So let me, okay. So now you can remove this content also, we don't need. So here we will say CSOM SharePoint demo, and we will see how we can add the content here. So as I said, so first let us go and then add the DLLs. So this is the references folder. You can see this is the reference folder. So we can right click on this, add reference. Either you can go for add reference. So if you go for add reference, again as I said, if you have SharePoint installed, from that you can browse to that particular location, and then you will be able to add the DLLs from there. But let's go for right click and then manage NuGet packages. So click on that, and then we will add our DLLs here. So now you can see here the those three tabs I was talking about. So these are actually all these DLLs which are already added in our application. And if you'll see, there are updates are available for 7 DLLs. So these are the DLLs where update is available. You can just select and you can click on update. So whatever the version you want to update, you can do that. But let's go to the browse tab, and here we are going to add the DLL. So I will say SharePoint .client, and from here we will add those DLLs. So our DLLs will add. So first one, if you'll see here, I'll prefer to go for the Microsoft DLLs. So click on that and then say install. So you can see here it will installing our DLL which we required. Yes, it is already installed now. Then go back to the client DLL. So sorry, runtime DLL. So SharePoint.client.runtime by Microsoft. So install this. So now we installed this DLL. So both the DLLs we have added there. So even if you added both the DLLs, so might not, you will not be able to see the classes unless and until you will write the using statement. So right click and then you will see here view code is there where your code file is there. So here we are going to write our code actually. Now let's first design the form. So if you'll see here, we will SharePoint demo, and then within that, let's say here we are going to add our form code. So for this, what I'll do is we will add a table tag structure. So I'll add a table tag first of all, or let's first we will write a h1 tag where we will say create list form. And in this, if you'll see, then we will write our structure for this. So I'll add a table tag, and within that, you can see here I'll add one tr, and with tr we will be having two tds. So I'll just copy it. And in the, so here we are going to add, let me just add all these trs. Okay, so the first one we will say list name, the next one list url, then list description, and finally here we'll add the button over here. Okay, so now similarly I'll be having a toolbox. So this is my toolbox. So from here you will be able to add your controls. I'll put the cursor here, and then I will go here, I will add a text box. So this is the text box. You can see here we need one more text box here for the url. For the description also we required one more text box. Let's give the name. So txt list name. You can follow any kind of standard C#.NET standard for naming convention. So txt list url, and then finally we will say txt description. And if you'll see here, description we required a multi-line value. So if you'll go to the properties, actually if you'll go to any property, you will be able to see here all these things. So if you'll see here, text mode is single line, so you can make it to multi-line. Okay, so now it becomes multi-line. Here I will add our button. So I'll go here and I will say button, and I will add one more button also. So I'll go here, I'll say button. So first one is button clear, next one is button submit or button create. Let's say we are creating list, so we will say button list create. So I'll add the text also. The text will be clear create list, something like that will give. And you can, the good thing in this Visual Studio that you can, there are three views are there. So first one is the source view where you can write, when you can see the source code. And the second, you will see here there is a split view where it will come in, you can see both the source as well as the design. So you can see here, I can see the source, you can see this is the source, and then this is the a source file, and the design also I can see. And then if you'll say design, then you can see only the design part of it. Now you can, if you want to make a little width, if you want to give, so you can give a little width. So let's say we'll give the width 300 something. We will say 300 pixel will give. So let's give for all this. And now what we can see here, our form will looks like this. You can see here, if you want to make your multi-line text box a little bigger, you can just drag and drop. So this is how you will be able to do that. Okay, and let's make it to consistent 300. Click on save. So now our form is ready. So you can see here our form is ready. So we need to write the code for this button. So again I'll go to the split view, and then if you double click on that, then it will generate the button click event. So I'll click on this clear also. You can see here for clear and for button create. Now we have both the buttons events got generated. So here, from here, now we are going to write our code. So to write the code, first of all, if you'll see, we need to we need to first retrieve the client context. So the client context is the first and foremost thing. So in this, what we will do is I will write a client context, but if you'll see here, it is not coming here. Client context is not coming. Why? Because we didn't add the references. So click on this. Sorry, we add the references, but we didn't add the namespace. So SharePoint. Yeah. So Microsoft.SharePoint.client. So once you will add this, then you will be able to see our client context. So first thing is we will write is client context, and how we can retrieve, how we can use is we need to provide the site URL for this. So client context, and I will add context equal to new client context, and here we need to provide the URL of the site, to which site you want to connect. So suppose here we want to connect to our SharePoint online site. So I'll copy the URL. So this is the URL. This is our SharePoint site. You just need to provide the site URL. You don't need to give your site pages home.spx, those DLLs. Just you need to provide till your site URL. Now next thing is the authentication mode we need to provide. So context dot authentication mode uh, equal to authentication mode or client authentication mode dot default. So client authentication mode dot default. And next important thing is we need to provide the credentials. So credentials means we need to provide the username and the password. So to which username and password you are we are using to connect to our SharePoint online site. So if you'll see here, I will provide that password. So client context dot credentials. So we need to provide basically the credentials. So new SharePoint online credentials. So new SharePoint online credentials. If you'll see here, now it is taking two parameters. If you'll see here, the first one, it is saying string username. That means it will take a string where you can pass your username. And the next thing is it is saying that it requires a password, but it should be a secure string. That means if I'll take my username like this and password like this, then there will be a problem. It will not, the error will come. So if you'll see here, I'll just copy the username. You can see here, this is my username. And the password, I cannot give the password like this, because if you give like this, then it is just a normal a string, but it is saying that it require and it requires a secure string. So how we can generate that secure string is there is a method available which we can use to generate that secure string. So basically there will be a we can use the secure string class, and then that we will use over here. So let me just copy that method. So what I'll do is I will just copy that method. So I just added the method. So this is actually a method which will take your password and it will give you a secure string. As I said, we need to use the secure string class. So we need to use the system.security namespace. So you can see here now, or you can just write over here using system.security. Now if you'll see here, so I'll copy our password. So this will be the password to connect to the site. You can see here, and then it will give you a secure string. Now that method we will use, or we will use over here. Now there will be no error because it is a secure string, because the return type is a secure string here. Okay, so that's how you will be able to use this. I think we give one more additional, yeah. Now, if you'll see here, so we pass our credential. That means by this time we should be able to connect to our SharePoint online site from our Windows application or from our desktop application, console application, or any kind of web application if we are trying to connect. So these three lines will be helpful to connect over there. Now, next thing is we need to retrieve the web. So we will say client context dot web, which will give you the web. So I will say var web sit context dot web. So it will give you the particular site now. So in this, if you'll see, we need to create a list over here, right? So what we'll have to do is we need to retrieve the list over here first. So how we can retrieve the list? So all the list it will give by using that context dot web dot list. So, or if I'll say web dot list, it will give me the all the list you can see here. So it will give me all the list. Now the return type of this one is a list collection. So I will take list collection and I will give a object name. So list equal to this. So if you'll see here, now we got all the list. So here is the add method is there. So on this list collection, we need to add our list. So whatever the list we will create, right? So, but before that, we need to pass all the information, like for example, our list title, list description, or list URL, and the template we need to provide. Where we need to provide, we can use the SharePoint provide a class known as list creation information class. So this list creation information class we can use to provide our title, URL description, all these things. So if you'll see here, list, there will be a list creation information class. You can see this one. So I will say new list equal to new list creation information class. Now on this, to this class, we need to provide our title description. So I'll say new list dot title. What will be our title? So our title will come from our txt title text box. You can see here, this is from where the list name or the title will come, and then the URL and the description, right? So we will use here txt list name dot text dot trim. So trim we can use so that it will remove the additional space which are required. And next, if you'll see here, new list dot description. So description, what will be our description? Our description we will take from our txt description dot text dot trim we can use. And next, what we'll do is we will pass the URL. So new list dot URL. You can see here we will use our URL field. You can say dot text dot trim. Now, next what we'll do is another important thing is what kind of list we are going to create. For example, when you will open in browser, we usually choose the list template, that whether it will be a custom list or it will be a announcement list, contact list, any kind of list we choose over there. Now from here, what we need to provide is we need to provide the template type. So we will say new list dot template type. What will be the type of list that we can use here? Equal to there is enum available on this, so which is known as list template type. You can see here list template type dot, and we will pass what kind of list. So let's say you want to create an announcement list. You can see here this is the announcement list. And if you want to have a generic list, you can have your generic list. So what we'll do is here we will write the generic list. So this is the generic list. Now if you'll see here, this is actually expecting a integer type. Okay, so but this one is not an integer type, so we need to actually typecast this. So what we'll do is we can say convert dot to INT 32. And here if you'll see, now all these parameters we pass it here. So then what we will do is, we will add our new list. So we will say var list equal to our list collection. So our list collection is this one. So I'll take this object list dot add, and we need to pass our list creation information parameter. So I'll pass this object here. You can see I pass it here. So next, what will two things you have to do? We need to update, and then we need to do the execute query. So first thing we will say list dot update, and then we will say list dot execute query. So unless and until you run your execute query, you will not see that sorry, context.execute query. Unless and until you write this execute query, your changes will not reflect in the database. So we need to have this execute query method. You can see here, this is our execute query method. So once you have this execute query, then the list will be created successfully. So for this, what we will do is, you can see here, this is how your execute query, and then um, once this code will execute, then your list will get created. But what we'll do is, here we will add a couple of columns into that. So what columns we will add? We will add two columns into that. So for example, let's say title column we'll use as the first name, but we will add two more columns, which is known as your email ID, and then our feedback, which will be a multi-line column. So for these things, what we will do is, I will first of all, I will take this out, this code, and I will create a function over there. So suppose I will say void create list, and I will just add over here. Okay, and then I will call this method here. Remember, you can create methods so that it will be easily for understandable. One thing I will tell you that whenever you are creating this object, so it is very much necessary that we should dispose the elements. So for that, what you can do is, we can write our track as block, and in the finally block we can dispose that. The other way what we can do is, you can write the using statement here. So how we can write the using statement is, you can just put the using keyword, and then in the end, if you'll see here, I will write like this. So my end tag will be here. So if you'll see here, within our end start and end tag, if you'll see, this is how our code is there. So in this case, what will happen is, you don't need to, it will not allow you, or it will not force you to, it will automatically dispose all the objects. So in the other way, you have to, in the finally block, we have to do that. But here if you'll see, we need to, it will just dispose all your objects. So this is very heavy objects context. So you need to make sure that you should use that. So the best practices is that you can just use the using statement. So now what we'll do is, now next thing is, we'll add the columns into that particular list. So if you'll see here, the columns, so I will create one more method here. I'll just copy this, and we will create one more method. So this is the method that we'll use that. So I will say add column to list, and in this method, what we are going to do is, we are going to add column to that particular list, assuming that we will create a feedback list. So let's say we will say company feedback or something. Then here we need to write our code. So for this, what we will do is, we need to add, or um, we need to first retrieve the we need to first retrieve the list. So for this, what we'll do is, we will say context dot web dot or web dot list dot get by title method is there, which will give you the list. So let's say I will say list, then suppose this is our target list equal to our dot list web dot list dot get by title. So get by title method is there, which will give you or which we can use to retrieve the particular list. So here let's say we will assume we can take the text box, or we can you can okay, let's take the text box value. So what will be the text box value? So let's txt title or txt list name dot text dot trim. So this is the list name which will be we will retrieve it. Now next thing is, once you get this list, now here we need to add the list columns. So to add the columns or the fields, we need to first retrieve all the fields from the list. So I will say target list dot fields. So once you will say target list dot fields, it will give you all the fields for that particular list, or the fields or columns. And this is returning a field collection object. So I will have to declare one. So field collection, and I will say I'll give this name as collection fields and equal to this. So now if you'll see here, this is our field. So we retrieve the fields from that particular list. So it will give us all the fields. Next, what we need to do is we need to add the columns. So how we can add the columns is we need to basically add in a schema field. So how we will add this schema field is we need to use the field type text, but that should be as a XML. We need to declare that. Okay, so this is how it will be. So basically what we you have to do here is, so we need to declare like this. For example, let us say we need to have this. So let me just collection fields is there. So collection fields dot collection fields, and here we need to add those two things. So first of all, what I said is we will add two columns. One is your email ID, and the other one is a feedback field, which will be a multi-line text box. So if you'll see here, we need to define this. So field type, and then the display name and the name. So the name will be the internal name. The display name is how it will appear in the form. So you can see here we can have a space in that, and then you can see add field as an XML, and we need to provide that XML. And then there are other parameters, like we need to define that whether it will add to the default content type or not. So similarly for the multi-line also, the column type is, or the field type is note. So you can use that note, and the display name, and again the internal name. And then if you want to have your rich text enabled, then you can say as true. I don't want a rich text here. It is just fine if you are putting the multi-line text box. And then finally, if you'll see here, we are adding these fields to that collection fields. And now what we have to do is we load that field. So collection fields dot load, and we will add sorry, context dot load. So what we'll do here is we'll say context dot load, and we need to load our this collection fields. Now if you see here, finally our execute query will get called, and let me call this, we need to call this method, right? So we'll go here, after this create list we will call our method, and then finally we can write here our successful message. So I'll just add a label here so that we can display the message in the label. So you can see here there is a label. I'll just remove the text, and I'll go here, I will say label 1 dot text equal to list created successfully. Now the other thing what we can do is you should write try catch block. Okay, so wherever you are expecting that there will be a error will appear, so you can have your try catch block, and in the catch block you can show a message to the user so that it will be easier for the user to understand. Let's say I'll put a try catch block here. So you can see here this is a try catch block. I will just copy this code and I'll move this code into our try block. And here if you'll see I have the exception here. I will say, and then I'll put a message. So I will say label_text, and I will say something went wrong while creating the list. So you can have any kind of message so that it will be easier for user to understand rather than seeing some message which is not easier for them to understand. So now what we'll do is you can always right click and rebuild the application. So I'll go here, I will say right click, and then you can see rebuild. So once it will be the rebuild will started, and once it will be succeeded, then you can run the application. Remember, if you have any build error, then it will show the errors and then you will have to fix it. For example, let's say I'll miss this semicolon here, and if I'll now go here, I will rebuild this application. It will not allow me to do that. It will show me this error. So you can see here there is a saying there is an expected semicolon. So I'll put this semicolon here. Now let's run our application. So when you will run our application, it will now open the form where user will enter the values for that particular list. Let's say here what we'll do is we will create a company feedback list. So on the display name and the internal name you have to provide properly, so that in the URL it should not give any space or any kind of special characters. So you need to take care of that thing. So first thing what we'll do is we'll write here, this is our form. Actually this is our how it is appearing. And if you remember, we discussed about the CSS classes in our previous tutorials, and you can add some CSS or styling to these controls also. So if you'll see here, I'll go to the list name. So I will say company feedback. You can see here, and then I will give the URL. So the URL I'll just remove the space, and I will say this is a feedback list for the company. And then you will see here you can say create list. So click on this create list. Now it will create the list, it will add the columns, and then it should show us the message. You can see here list created successfully it is showing, but you will see the values are still there. So you can clear this. And also we didn't write any code for the clear button, so we can write the clear button code as well. So for this, what we'll do is now let's verify whether our list got created or not. So this is our SharePoint site. So I'll go to the site content. You can see here, this is our site content. And in this site content, you can see there is a company feedback list is there. Click on that. And now if you'll see in this company feedback, there is a title column, which is the default column, but this is the email ID and the feedback column, which we created programmatically. Now let's go back here and I will just modify the code a little bit here. So what we'll do is we'll clear those fields. So let's add this in that button. So if you'll see here, now I will write txt list name dot text equal to empty. So you can have it empty, or you can write string dot empty as well. So let me add this. So list URL dot text string dot empty. So you can use this also. So it will also make it clear. So I will add the description as well. So description dot text equal to empty. And if you'll see here, we need to use the same code after this list creation also, right? We need to write here because we need the fields to be clear there. So rather than doing that, I will write a method. So I will say clear fields. So I'll say void clear fields, and here we'll add our code. So and we can call the method. in both the places wherever you require, so that you don't need to modify the code multiple times. So at one place you can just modify and you can reuse it multiple times. So now let's go back. We will just create one more list. So we will see whether the fields are clearing or not, whether our code is working or not properly. So now let's go back here into our form, and here I will just write this. I'll just add one more thing, company update. I'll put this also. If you'll see here, if I'm saying clear, it is clearing all the fields. And if I will say create list, you can see here now it should create the list, as well as it will it create or it clear all these fields or the columns also. Now this is how we saw how we can use, and we saw how we will be able to create this list. Now next what we'll see is we'll see how we can add data into that particular list whatever we created. So we will see how we can insert, update, or delete list items into that particular list. Okay, so now we will see various examples in CSOM. So we'll see how we can insert item to a list, whatever the list we created, feedback list. Then we'll see how we can update items, delete item, and all we'll do by using our Visual Studio solution. So let me just open it. So this is the solution that we created for creating the list. Now what I'll do is we will so this is a form that which we created previously, and this is to create the list. So if you'll see here, let me just close it. So if you'll see here, this is the form that we created for creating the list. Now what we'll do is we will see how we can insert item to the list. So now if you'll see our list, so let me open the list. So this is our list, and on this I have a title column, I have an email ID column, and then the feedback column. So for this we will see now we will create an interface where user will go and then user will enter the title, or let's say we can take this as a name. So we can take this as a name and then email ID and then the feedback. So for this, I will create the interface first. As I said, in the .NET application, you can create the interface easily. So we will add it here. So I'll just add one more row over here. I'll go down and I will add one row here. So one more row we'll add, and we'll add the end tag divs. So here if I'll now go, I'll add a similar kind of table and similar buttons. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this code, whole table code I will copy, paste it here. I'll just remove this button click events, and now what we will do is, so you can see here the ID got changed, because in a form you can have only one ID, okay, with the same name. So if you want to give different, then you will have to add the you need to give the different ID. So now we will um, change the form according to our requirement. So if you'll see in our this is our list. So here we'll put the title, email ID, and feedback. So we'll say enter title, enter email ID, and then I will say enter feedback or your feedback. So we will take that same multi-line text box column. We will say your feedback. And now what we'll do is we'll give the naming convention. So txt or title, make sure that ID should not be there. So txt email ID and txt feedback. And now this button, so I will take button clear, same or we will say button cancel, and then we will say button submit. So here you will say clear and we will say submit feedback. So now let's go to the split view. You will be able to see the form, how it is appearing. Let me just save the page so you can see here. Now it is coming here, enter title, email ID, feedback and the button. So double click on the button and it will generate the event for us. So for same for clear and the submit. What we will do is we will add one more h1 tag or h2 tag, and then we will say submit for feedback or something like that. So we'll say submit feedback, and now this is our feedback form. So here what we will do is we will now write our code to insert item to the list, and whatever the values user will insert, those things will be added here. So for this, what we will do is we will add our code for this. So first of all, we need to do the connection to connect to our SharePoint online site. So that is a must for everything. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this code. So whatever the code is there, let me just copy it. So at least till this much it is same. So I'll copy this code. You can see here, I just copied it. And now what we'll do is we need to add, we need to see how, first of all, we need to retrieve the particular list. So what I'll do is I'll say list, and then this is whatever our list will be there. So list equal to, how we can get it is we will get it from the web. So web dot list dot get by title method is there, which we can use. So list dot get by title. So this is the method which we can use to retrieve the particular list. So for us, the list name is company feedback. So I'll copy the list from here. You can see here, this is our list by title. So I'll have to put a space on that. So this is, we got the title now. Next, what we will do is we will, SharePoint provides a class known as list item creation information class. Okay, so this list item creation information class will we will use to set up all these properties, and then we will see how we can insert that. So for this, what we will do is we will say list item creation information. You can see here, this is the class, and we will say we'll give a object for that. So list item creation information equal to new list creation information. Sorry, list item creation information. Now what we need to do is we need to provide the properties. So for that, there is a list item class is there. So we'll have to use the list item class. So list item, and let me just capital letter, list item equal to, where we need to add is we need to add to our particular list. So it is list because this is the object that is what it is giving us. So list dot add item method is there. If you see here, the first method, add item method, and what it is taking is, you can see it is taking the list item creation information parameter. So we need to provide that object here. So we will provide this object here. You can see, so we added here. Now what we'll do is we need to provide all these values. So our title or our email ID. So I think there is a conflict over there. So which one we require is we require to use Microsoft.SharePoint client list item. Okay, so you can just click on this. You say we require this. Now next thing is we need to set up all these properties here. So whatever the properties you will set it, you can set it by using this object. So item, then our field name, and then the value. So the value will be, what will be the value for, let's say this is for title, and then what will be the value? The value will be txt title, you can see here, this is the txt title dot text dot trim. As a best practices, you can write trim so that it will not put any additional space if it is there. And next thing is our email ID. So item, and then we'll pass the email ID equal to txt email ID dot text dot trim. So I'll just copy this. I'll add one more line here. So I will pass now email ID. So we can take the column name from our list. So if you'll see here, this is the column name. So we will take it. See, remember, this will take the internal name, not the display name. So the internal name will not be having any space into that, and then it will be feedbacks. And then what will be the for feedback? It will be txt feedback. So now if you'll see here, we provided the values where we are inserting our title, email ID, and the feedback also. Now next, we need to call two things. One thing is we need to update the value. So where we'll update to the item. So that will be item.update. And then what we will do is we will call the execute query method. As I said you, unless and until you call this execute query method, it will not, the changes will not reflect in the content database. So we need to call the execute query method. So now you can see here it is saved. So let's go back here, and now let us run this code. So I'll simply go click here, and now if you'll see here, it will open the browser with our columns will be there, our form will be there, where user can go and then enter the values into that. So down will be our form will be there. You can see the form is opening now. So this is our form. So we will enter a title, email ID, and then our feedback. Now suppose I will let's say we will take this as our name, and then you can see here this is our email ID, and then this is my feedback. And now click on submit feedback. So obviously we didn't put any message over there, but still there is some error on that. So what is saying, column email ID is not exist. So we'll have to see. Let me go here. Let me just put the space on that. Let's run once again. So the good thing is that you can directly see the error over there if any error is there. So it will you can see the message, but the best thing is that you should put a try catch block in that. So put the try catch block, and then there you will be able to see the error message. Now you can see, you can also show a user friendly message to the end user. So I'll say this is my feedback. Click on submit. Again, there is a problem in this one. Let me just check what is the column name. Now I'll go back to this. I'll go to the list settings. So you can, this is the modern list, so you'll be able to get it from here. So modern list, and then down if you'll see, this is the email ID column. So if you'll see now, there is the problem. That's the reason I always say that you should give a proper naming convention for that. So if you'll see now, the email internal name is this one. What is this email? So it is replacing the space with underscore x0020 underscore. So you need to copy this name, this name, and then you need to put it here. So you remember, as I said, you need to provide internal name, not the display name. Now let me also just put one message. So label 2. So I'll use label 2 dot text equal to item inserted successfully. So now let's run this. So now it will work because there is the column problem is solved now. So we gave the internal name which is having some special characters on that. So if you'll see now, I'll go here and we'll add the message also here. Click on submit. Now we should see the message. You can see here item inserted successfully. Now suppose you want to clear these fields, then we already know how we can clear it. So you can clear also the fields if you want, and you can also write the same logic for this clear button. We already discussed that on the list, so you can put the same logic over there. Now what we'll do is we will update the item. We will see how we can update the item. Remember when we usually update item, that basically what we are doing is we are for a particular item only we are updating that. So for example, let's say I have this whatever the feedback I inserted, and if I'll show you in the list also. So if you'll see, if you go back to the company feedback list, now you will see one item will be there. So let it open. So this is our company feedback list. I was opening the other one. So this is the company feedback list. You can see here, this is the feedback that we inserted or the item that we inserted. Now, remember, whenever we are updating, so we need to provide or we need to have a unique ID for that. So each SharePoint list has one ID column. So we can add that ID column. Let me just edit this view, and then what we'll do is I will add this ID column, then we'll be able to see what is the ID for that particular item. Click on OK. Now if you'll see here, this is the ID column, the ID is 1. Now we need to update. When you are doing an updating, we need to provide the ID of that particular item for which you are going to update the item. So for this, what we will do is we'll have the same form. So we'll use basically the same form, but what we'll do is I'll add one more button into that. So instead, so I'll take one more row over there, or one more TD, sorry TR, and then I'll put 2 TD inside that. And in one TD, what we'll do is we will put our text box, which will say that enter item ID, and then we will enter the ID of that particular item for which item you are going to edit or modify this value. So I'll say txt ID, and then the other one we'll put the button, so which will basically we'll use for updating the code or updating the item. So you'll see here, I will say update item. Now I will take this as button update. Now let's go to the split view. We'll generate the code for that. So if you'll see here, this is the button. So button update. Now when you are updating this, as I said, we need to update based on a particular ID. That means we need to retrieve the ID first of all. Okay, but the other things will be same. So for example, what we will do is I will copy this whole code because we require this code. And now what we'll do is, so we are retrieving the particular list, and then we need to retrieve the ID. So for that, what we need to retrieve is we need to retrieve the item. So I'll remove this code, and then if you'll see here, we have an item class over there, item object. Now what we need to do is we need to retrieve the particular item. So list dot, if you see here, there is a method available dot get item by ID. You can see here, this is the this will provide you the item, whatever the ID you will pass. So I will pass here from that txt ID. So if you'll see here, two overloaded methods are there. Either you can pass the integer or you can pass a string as well. So txt ID dot text. So we can pass that ID. And now what it will do is it will now give us the particular ID. For example, in the text box, if you'll put 1, then it will give us the one item whose ID is 1. And then we have the value. So whatever the values are there, so that value it will provide. And then we will write the update and the execute query. And then finally we will say item updated successfully, something like that. You can show the message that if you want to provide. Now this is our code. So what we are doing here is, I just explain once again, we are passing the txt ID and we are going to update in the particular list. So whatever the username password we are providing, everything, if you can centralize that, meaning you can put that it at one place. At the same time also, if you want, you can put in the config file also. There is no problem in adding that in config file, and then you can retrieve in the code. So now let's go back here, and now our form will open, and in this what we will do is we will enter an ID. We know that item ID is 1, so we can put that item ID, and then we will update item, that particular item. Now if you'll see here, now I'll enter the title as different, and then if you'll see here, I will say now @tsinfo technologies.com. This is not my feedback anymore. And now I'll click on this update item. So if you'll see here, we click on that, so it will now go and check item update successfully. Now let's go back to the list. Now refresh the page. So if you'll see here, now it should, the items should be updated. You can see here the title changed to Bhapna, and then the email ID and the feedback as well. So this is how we can do the update. Now what I'll show is how we can delete this. Now let us say there is an item available, so user will enter the ID, then you can delete it. Now here I am taking text boxes. You can have your you can have a drop down where you will populate all your items or all the IDs or the title, and then you can take the corresponding ID. So you can add that in a drop down. This is purely .NET code, so you will be able to add it. Now what I'll do is I will add one more button here. So you can see here, we will use the same item ID column, item ID text box, but we'll take another button. So here I will do, what I'll do is I'll come back here, I'll add a button. So button delete, and let me just remove this one, and instead of update item, I will say delete item. So let's, in the source view, double click on that. Now you can see here our button delete code has been generated, the event. I'll copy the same code, I will put it here. Now we don't need to update anything, so I will delete all these things. So then what we'll do is we need to call the delete method. So what we'll do now is we are retrieving the ID. So first we retrieve the list, then we retrieve the item by ID, and now we need to call the delete object method. So there is a method available on the item. So item dot delete object will be there. So you can see here delete object, and remember, even if you call this delete object, it will not delete unless and until you call this execute query method. So your execute query method is must. So item, I will say deleted successfully. Now let's run this code. So delete is pretty simple. You just put the ID and then call the delete object, and anyway your execute query method will always be there. Now we have one item anyway, and there is only one thing is there. So I'll go back here, I will say item ID 1 and then delete item. So you will see here now the item will get deleted. You can see a successful message is saying item deleted successfully. I'll go back here. I will say refresh this, and you can see here now it is the item is not there. So that means the item got deleted successfully. Now what I will do is I will show you a couple of code here. I'll explain that, and also we will see if you can run that, or those code are executing successfully, and then you can also retry. You will also get access to that code, so you will be able to see those code as well. Here we'll see now how we can retrieve all the items. Okay, so we saw how we can insert, update, delete. Now let's see how we can retrieve it. So for that, let's say I have a list. There is a this is known as the department list, and it has couple of departments on that. So what I will do is here, let's say I'll add one more column here. So I'll add one more. Let's go back here. I'll add a H2 tag on that. So just to show a message that we are retrieving departments, and in that we will see we can use a literal control is there which you can use, and we will be able to bind the value into that. So there's the control that you will be able to use on this. So this literal control you can see here. Now what we'll do is let's say on the page load on the or on the button click, wherever you want. If you want to add the code in the page load, so you can go to the page load method. You can see here this is our page load method, and then here we'll be able to write our method, or we will call our method here. So our code will go here. Now I'll add a method. So let's say get list items, and on this, and we are going to call this method on the page load. So we will write in, since it's a web application, so we'll have to take care of the is post back. So if not is post back, then we will call that method. So you can see here this is the method that I call, and here we are going to write our logic. So as I said, what we have to do is we need to retrieve the list and then all the list items, and then we'll need to bind it to that code. Let me just copy the code from here. So I will take this code and I'll put it here. Now if you'll see here, so this is our site. You can see here we provided the um, um, we provided the credentials to connect with to our SharePoint site, and this is the camel query where we are retrieving 100 items on that. You can pass the query on that, and then there is ambiguity again. So we will use that this is our SharePoint class, not our .NET class. So this is our SharePoint collection class. Same thing for list item also. So for item also we will use the same thing, Microsoft.SharePoint one. Now once you add this list item, you can see here the collection, so it will give you all the items. So unless and until, again I'm saying, unless and until you write the execute query method, you will not receive that data. And then finally what we are doing is I have a string, so I declare a string, and in that we are appending the URL of the item and the text of that item. So how once a user click on that particular item, they will also see the display form. So now what we will do here is, so you can see here list department, this is the ID, and then so this is going to be the URL and the title. So now for this what we need to do is, let me just click on this. Now this will be the URL, so I'll copy this URL, and then if you'll see here ID equal to, and this is the ID that whatever it will come. So now let's run this code. So as I said, this code will run on the page load. So we are calling the method on the page load. So if we'll go back here, you can see the page will load, and then finally we will see our values should be loaded down. You can see here this is the departments that it is loading, and if I'll click on this particular item, you will be able to let me open in the new browser, because it is a different browser where we don't have the credentials logged in. So if you'll see here, I just copy the URL you can see the item is opening here, right? So this is how you can also retrieve item from a SharePoint list. Now what we'll do is I will add a demo column on that. So let me just add a dummy column. So I'll add a break over here. I'll add a button on that. Demo. So button demo. Now what exactly we are going to do here is in that actually I have some more examples on that. So I'll explain you that code how it is working. Now for example, let's say we want to delete a list. So you can see here this is how you can delete the code, delete um, the list. So you can pass the URL of that particular site. So you can see here this is the site URL, and you can pass the credential for that. So this is the credential that we can pass it. So this is my username. So I'll put the username here, and the password is already we are taking from the same method, and this is going to be the list. Now how we can delete is there is a delete object method is there which of that particular list. So you can see here client context or the context.wave.list get by title. So whatever the list you want to delete, you can you can call that, or you can put that list by title. Remember, so you need to provide the display name of the list, not the internal name. So once you pass the display name and then you call load it, and then load is not necessary. You can have the delete method, and then you can call the execute query method. Remember, even if you call this delete object, that will not delete unless and until you call the execute query method. So this is how the code will be, which will delete the list. So now let me comment out this code. And now if you'll see here, we discussed about the indexing, right? We saw how in the out of box how we can create indexing on that. Now you may got requirement where you need to provide the indexing through programmatically. So for those cases, what we can do is you can have the code, or you can have this indexing you can do that using programmatically. So I will copy this code. So if you'll see here, a couple of things we need to modify. For example, our site URL, the list name, username, and then the list name. So for which list you want to do the indexing. So I have taken variables. So you can take your list names here. Let's say your list name is company feedback. You want to do indexing for this, and let me put the URL also. So this is the URL. I'll put the site URL and the username. So this is the username. Now what I have done here is, now suppose you have you want to do the indexing for multiple columns. Then in those cases, what you can do is you need to provide the column names in string. So I just put in a string, so that we can we rather than doing individually, you can have the column names here, and then here we are just doing a string operation to retrieve, and then each column uh, will be treated as an indexing. So it will do an indexing on the title column and the email ID column. So you can see here, and now what we will do is, let's run this code. We will see the indexing. It will create the index. We'll see this one. So let me just go back here. So field dot index equal to true will do the indexing. So that's how we need to understand. So we retrieve the particular field. So list dot field by title, get by title. So first time it will be the title column, next time it will be the email ID column, and then it will do indexing for each. And then finally, if you'll see here, there is a execute query method that will actually do the changes in the particular site or particular list. So indexing will be there for that particular list. Let me open this one. Now what I'll do is I'll go here, I'll click on this demo button. You can see here, now we didn't put any message, anything. So we'll go to our list and we'll see whether in our company feedback list, if the indexing is done or not, whether the indexing has been there for that particular those two columns or not. Let me just go to that particular list. So list settings, and down you will be able to see index columns. And here we'll see whether our indexing, you can see here email ID and title both indexes has been done for these two columns. So this is how you need to provide the display name here. So this is how the indexing happened in programmatically you can do using CSOM. Now similarly, there are a few more examples are there. For example, let us say um, we usually create the history list. So if you'll see for that history list, you cannot create by using your browser. So what we have to do is you can either do using programmatically, or you can do using your CSOM PowerShell like this you can use. Now we'll see how we can do it, how we can create a history list by using programmatically using the CSOM code. And now here if you'll see it is what it is doing is it is providing, or we are first checking whether the list is exist or not. If the list exists, then we are not doing anything, and if the list is not exist, then only we are creating that. So for this, if you'll see, let me just change a couple of things. First thing is the URL. So this is going to be our site URL, and in this site we are going to check whether the history list is there or not. If it is not there, then it will create that. If it is there, then it will just keep it, it will not do anything. So now what I did is I took this list name and the title. So two things we took, because we need to provide the URL properly, and this is going to be our display name. And now if you'll see, this is the code to check whether the list having the title is exist or not. So you can see here list or title, where list or title equal to our list title, which is the name that we provide here. And if the list count greater than 0, that means the list is exist. We are not doing anything. If not, then we are providing the we are using the code to create the list. So we saw already how we can create the list. So I'll just remove the console code. If you want to show a successful message, you can just add it here, and you can see this is the template type that we are providing, workflow history template. Now let's run this code. So let me run it. So here what we were not providing the ID or the title or the list name. We have just hard coded inside our program. So that means here it will check on the list title by like this, and it will update, or it will add the list name or the URL without space. So now go back and open our page. Now I'll click on this demo. So once you click on that, you can see here we will not have a successful message. So we'll go back to our site, and then I'll go to the site content. So you can see here this is our site content page, and we should have a list. You can see here this is the new workflow history list. So if you'll click on that, you can see the URL, there is no space in that. So that means it is, and if next time suppose you want to execute the code, it will not do anything, or neither you will get any error, because we have handled that properly, so that it will not do anything if the list is already exist. So this is how always you should check whenever you are getting a requirement to create a list or something like that. You should check whether the list is exist or not. If it is not exist, then only you should create. So this is how you sometimes you got also getting requirement like if the list is exist, then you can just delete it. We saw how we can delete the code, so you can just delete it, and then you will be able to recreate that. So this is a few of the examples that we saw in CSOM, and we saw how we can use in console application, Windows application, or ASP.NET web applications. Next, what we'll do is we will read about the client object model, about REST API, Angular JS, those stuff. But what we'll do is we will read about the provider trusted app. That time we will see again how we are using this kind of CSOM code inside that. Because if you are using provider trusted app, then the CSOM language is the only language that you will write the code over there. So let's see now about other client object model.